High-value employees have become the path of least resistance and a key source of compromise for corporations. Attacks against executives can compromise their personal accounts, enable corporate breaches, and can even compromise their reputation, wealth, and physical security. Black Cloak understands that an executive's personal digital footprint is crucial to enterprise security. We provide concierge cybersecurity solutions tailored for executives, safeguarding their personal data, devices, and online presence. Experience peace of mind knowing that your team is protected with Black Cloak Digital Executive Protection. Secure your digital life with blackcloak.io. Visit us now at securityweekly.com/blackcloak. Enterprises today are using hundreds of SaaS applications. Are you reaping their productivity and innovation benefits, or are you lost in the sprawl? Enter Saviynt Security. They help you surface every SaaS app, identity, and risk, so you can shine a light on shadow IT and risky identity. Saviynt monitors your entire SaaS attack surface to help you efficiently eliminate toxic risk combinations and prevent attacks. So go on, get savvy about SaaS and harness the productivity benefits. Fuel innovation while closing security gaps. Visit securityweekly.com/savvy to learn more. Why is identity resilience a top priority for security executives? Because your identity access management or IAM system is critical to your business. Whether you use Okta, Microsoft Entra, or another IDP, if your IAM is attacked, your operations can go down for hours or days, directly impacting your bottom line. So what's your backup plan? Mighty ID is here to save the day, reinforcing your IAM resilience. With flexible backup and recovery, and even migration between IDPs, Mighty ID keeps business running when failure is not an option. Check out Mighty ID at securityweekly.com/Mighty ID for more.
Welcome to RSA Conference. We are here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Saviynt. I'm your host, Akira Brand, and joining me is Jeff Margolis, Chief Product and Strategy Officer from Saviynt. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here today. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about Saviynt and how AI integrates with y'all's products. But first, I want to get to know a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you said, I lead up product and strategy, which basically means I'm responsible for what are we doing, where are we going, why are we doing that. I have a large team of product managers who do all the hard work, and I get to, talk about it.
Okay, so tell us about Saviynt.
Saviynt is focused on identity security. We're an integrated converged platform that covers a lot of different areas of identity security.
Okay, fabulous. And what in Saviynt world right now are you really trying to solve? What problem are you addressing?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, kind of starts with a definition, which is that everyone and everything has an identity, right? And in today's world, all those identities, whether it's employees or your extended workforce or your business partners, they all have an identity. And all the machines, they have identity. We're going to talk about AI. They need access to things. And so, that's on one side. And then on the other side is everything they need access to, that all this digital stuff, all of this physical stuff they need access to. And so really the identity security problem is, how do you figure out all of these identities and all these resources, who gets access to what at the right level of granularity, so you can enable them to do what they need to do, but protect all of those resources against whatever all those threats are.
Right.
And that's the problem that we're trying to solve efficiently at scale for really large enterprises and enterprises. We're not so much focused on small business, but medium, particularly regulated industries and large enterprises.
Fabulous. All right. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about AI.
Yeah, for sure.
So such a hot buzzword right now. AI is so hot right now. I would love to hear how your company is taking on AI and how are they leveraging it right now?
Yeah, there are a lot of areas that we're focused on for AI. So first, I think fundamentally, to get past the buzz, what we're leveraging AI for is to help humans be more productive, be more efficient. one of the challenges, I talked about that scale problem,
Yes.
right? Where you have hundreds of thousands of people and millions of things all trying to access millions and millions of resources. And traditionally, that's been a very human intensive problem. You maybe define some roles and you say, hey, if you have this job function, then you get these things. Or maybe you define a process like I request something and somebody approves it. When you do that at scale, how do you give the people the decision-making assistance to be able to understand what am I approving? At scale right now, it's often just a rubber stamp. It's like, can I have this? Sure.
Yeah.
Why do I say sure? Because I have no idea what you're asking for. I get this all the time as a manager, right? Can I have sure? Why not? I trust you, so you can have it.
Right.
But if AI, if machine learning can give us some information about that, some so what? So what if I approve this? What's the risk of approving this? What else does that person have access to that maybe combined together would be, allow some additional risk?
Yeah.
Like writing myself a check, right? Those sorts of things. Like, well, if I have this and this, maybe I can do that, or maybe I can ship myself some product, or maybe I can, do something else that's bad. And so, having machine learning and AI that can really give you more context, right? And do that at scale and help understand, well, like recommendations engines when you're buying things at Amazon, right? It's like, hey, people like you like to buy this product too, right?
Yes.
And so similar sorts of things that you can do in the enterprise, like people like you have access to these other things. So it's probably not that high a risk. But nobody like you has access to this other thing.
Right.
Maybe I ought to take a second look, right? So that's one area that we're focused on in AI that is relatively straightforward, tried and true sort of machine learning things. There are a lot of other things that we're doing with AI too, because this in the last 18 months since ChatGPT came out, since LLMs exploded onto the scene, so to speak, a lot of AI means large language models, means chatbots, means something that you can interact with conversationally.
Right.
And that is a tremendously important thing as you interact with systems like ours that maybe their typical end user sees once a quarter, a couple times a year. You want to come to an app and just know how to use it.
Right.
And so having that chat interface makes it easier.
Yeah.
Have more of an English language or whatever your native language is conversation with a chatbot, to say, well, should I approve that access? Or, hey, I'm trying to do this marketing thing. Can I get access to that marketing thing? And for it to understand what that marketing thing means, as opposed to come up with some like machine name. I need access to AC3289.
Totally.
And
127.0.1.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So just making the user experience easier, helping make decisions easier, helping to scale to solve the problem. That's really how we're thinking about using AI and the sort of things that we're launching this week here at RSA.
So I'm thinking that what you're describing probably saves your customers a lot of time.
Yes.
Not only does it save them time, it probably saves them money, right? Because you're not having the head count of staff having to go in and manually approve these. You're not having incidents that are based on like maybe an incorrect approval. But how else do your customers benefit from this?
That's right. Productivity is huge, right? Just enabling people with what they need to do their job, right? Just empowering them to work in this digital economy. That's extremely important. Saving costs,
right.
In this macro environment, it's always important to save costs. I mentioned that we were a converged platform, and a lot of our customers have hundreds of security tools, you walk the floor here at RSA. There are thousands of security vendors, and a lot of CISOs, they want a platform. They want fewer platforms.
Right.
And so you can save money. You can save money from having converged platform. You can also save, by having a converged user experience. There's one place they need to go. They only have to learn how to use one system, and it's easier to use. You only have to integrate that platform into your digital environment once. You don't have to do it for every single tool.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of places that you can save costs. And with AI, that integration problem in the identity space, that has been the bane of identity for the 25 years I've been in identity, right? You spend so much time, maybe it's, historically it was months to integrate with an application. And, now maybe, it's hours to do it. But with AI, it's seconds. Your AI can read an API. It can generate code. It can automatically do that connection in a way that, it was humans doing that before. And, when I was a young employee, I was doing firewall implementations, lifting tiles up, plugging cables in. Nobody does that anymore.
No.
The cloud providers do that. And, in a few years from now, nobody's going to code connectors anymore. AI is going to be doing that. And we can focus on the real problem, right?
So what's the real problem in your opinion?
I think the real problem is, an identity security operational problem. Like how do we get the right people the right access at the right time?
Yeah.
And not have it there the rest of the time.
Right.
And how do we make sure that all the people who left yesterday don't have access today? And how do we make sure that all the people who left my vendor yesterday that had access into our supply chain doesn't have access anymore? All of those operational things are what companies need to focus on, rather than the project, the never-ending identity project.
It is never ending, isn't it?
We hope to get past that.
I think you're going to do a great job. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a spicy question.
Spicy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so AI, super hot. Identity and access management, big deal. Is this just marketing, or is there something here?
No, this is real stuff, right?
Yeah.
Machine learning's been around forever, right?
Yeah.
But the new capabilities, particularly that the cloud providers are rolling out, more compute, more ability to really crunch on large data sets. We have over 500 customers. We have over 50 million identities that we're managing in our cloud. That gives us a data set to crunch on that when this was an on-prem software world, just didn't have that data. The software companies didn't have that data. The enterprise had that data, right? And so now we have a place to train the AI. LLMs that read API specs and generate code, that's a thing. That's it's a real thing, right? And it's not just a, imagined idea that, that'll never happen, right? It's happening today.
That is fantastic. And let's move into the future a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's happening today. Where do you see this going over the next 18 months?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, I said we have a lot of data. There's a lot more data. Our typical identity management system today might be managing hundreds of applications, but our customers have thousands of applications. And by bringing down the integration costs, we can extend how many applications are under management, how many systems, how much infrastructure, all of those things. So being able to expand out that data set and get a lot more data to train the AI, what are the effective, what are the policies that are in there? Like what defines who gets access to what, and really start to get much better at that. And it has to get more sophisticated. And so that's one thing out of the next 18 months. It's really just expanding the breadth of coverage in your typical enterprise of systems that we're managing, right? I think the other thing that's really coming is expanding the breadth of identities that we're looking at, and so clearly workforce, that's being done. Lots of third parties are being done, but not all. And I think it's really important, most security attacks of late have vectored in some way through a third party.
Right.
And it is so important. And there's so much more risk in the third parties. And there, you have to trust them, right? But verify,
Yes.
that they still work there, that they really need that access, that all those things are still in place, so that's important. And then machine identity. We're just starting to get a handle on all of the machines, all the apps that need to talk to other apps or APIs and microservices talking to this and OT devices and IoT and all of that sort of stuff, right, is really just starting to be managed in a similar system on the same platform. So you can really see the breadth of your risk and then prioritize what do you want to focus on.
Okay, so Jeff, we are almost wrapping up today. Do you have any last thoughts for our listeners?
Last thoughts. I think just from a sales and marketing perspective, right?
Sure.
Certainly, we're very excited at what we're doing at Saviynt, obviously. We think that the fact that we've been cloud native from the beginning gives us an advantage, because we have access to the data. We have access to really be able to crunch on all of that data and train AI.
Right.
The converged platform just works. It makes sense.
Yeah.
The driving towards nobody wants more and more tools, right? They just want solutions to the problem.
They just want to fix the problem.
And it's got to be comprehensive.
Yeah.
Right. The idea of light just doesn't work. Our enterprises are not light.
Right.
Our enterprises they're complex.
Yeah.
They're operating in lots of different countries. They're operating in different businesses. They have different regulatory regimes. They're just, they need the comprehensive capabilities to really be able to manage this problem at scale and deal with the complexity they have. And so, we think cloud, converged and comprehensive, that's our sweet spot, and customers that are looking for that Savynt's the right answer.
Beautiful. All right, well, thank you so much for your time. We have been speaking with Jeff Margolis of Saviynt, and thank you to our listeners for joining Security Weekly. Visit securityweekly.com/Saviynt RSAC to find out more, and then check out all of our RSAC coverage at securityweekly.com/RSAC. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Silverfort. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview today is Hed Kovetz, CEO and co-founder of Silverfort. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. So identity, we're talking about identity today, and the role identity plays in nearly every attack, including ransomware. I think everybody is fairly familiar with identity's role in attacks. We focus on things like security awareness, phishing testing, trying to make sure that it's not one of the entry points. I'm sure it's not the only at the entry that identity matters, right?
Yeah.
But IAM is an interesting space. If you look at all the cybersecurity vendors, the most vendors are in the identity space. So why is that? Why is identity so big?
I think it's a huge problem, and I also think that over time it's becoming a bigger and bigger element of enterprise security. I think one of the reasons is because these days where people are working from anywhere, right? So they're not just working from the office. They can work from anywhere in the world. They can use any device. Doesn't have to be a corporate device, right? So if you think about it, identity is really becoming like the last line of defense, right? If I can log in from anywhere in the world using any device, as long as I can prove that it's me,
right,
and I'm part of your corporate environment now, I can access anything, then identity really became, in many ways, critical. But over the years, for some reason, we weren't able to bring it to a point where it's secure enough.
Yeah.
Even though there's so many solutions, as you said, still in the majority of data breaches, identity is compromised, both for the initial login and for then moving laterally inside the network. So I think we still need to do more as an industry in order to solve that problem, because it is becoming huge.
And there are some huge identity providers out there. So why is it, just if you use, I guess it's Entra ID now, it used to be Azure ID, or something like Okta, and these companies have done some acquisitions, but are those enough? Why do we see, or why would a company want to use more than one identity solution?
So interestingly, all of these are partners for us.
Okay.
The way we view the identity space is that the vendors you just named and a few others, they are all the identity infrastructure providers, right? They manage your identity itself.
Right, the directories, yeah.
And they also provide security for their own environment, right? For Entra, for Okta, for Ping. The problem is that it's only securing that island, that silo, right? In a way, it's almost like if you would buy endpoint security from Lenovo and HP and Apple individually, right? And it only secures Lenovo computers.
Right.
I think that people understand now that identity requires a more holistic treatment for security. So people are still going to have those hybrid identity infrastructure, right? Like on-prem, cloud, maybe multiple clouds. But I do think that there's a need for a security platform that secures identity across all these silos. And that really is what we built and why we actually partner with these vendors.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think a couple of years ago, we got the sense with MFA that was going to solve a lot of these problems. Why didn't it?
I still think MFA is a very important piece, right? But I think MFA alone is not enough. People unfortunately make the mistakes of approving their MFA even if it's not really them. We've seen a lot of these kind of attacks, right, by groups like Lapsus and others, where they trick someone into approving MFA, right? Scattered Spider did the same, and others. And also, there are a lot of cases where it's just not the answer. Think about, for example, non-human identities. There's no person to actually click on MFA approval. So I think that identity security is really becoming a combination of many capabilities, right? You got multi-factor authentication, you have privilege access management, you got security for non-human identities, you got what's now called ITDR, identity threat detection and response, right? Where it's more on the SOC side of detecting these threats and responding to them. There's all these different solutions that until now were just point solutions. You would buy MFA from one vendor and PAM and ITDR. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to consolidate identity security into one platform that has all these capabilities and, I think more importantly, applies them across all those islands where security until now was siloed, right? On-prem, Active Directory, cloud, and with all the different cloud providers you got over there. It's really about unifying identity security so that it will become more effective.
Yeah. And I've noticed one of the issues that we often see with identity is, 80%, 90%, maybe even 99% of the accounts get secured, but if you're missing one or two, that's as good as 100, right? Like how do we address that problem where, maybe MFA is deployed, it doesn't hit 100%, especially in large organizations, how do we address that?
I think you are hitting a very important problem. Identity security, I think, is complex, right? It's one of the most difficult projects usually.
Yeah.
So implementing MFA for a few users is that easy, but really getting to all of them, that's pretty hard. Same with PAM solutions, right?
Yeah. Impacts every employee.
Your users, you can, but really getting to all those admins, not just tier 0, but all of these admins, that's tough. Non-human identities like service accounts, that's many organizations almost consider to be impossible. Yeah. So because of these challenges, people are spending years, lots of budgets, as you know, right, lots of vendors, and still don't fully solve those problems. There are still a lot of these users, systems that are left outside because it's too difficult to onboard them, or because of budget, or because of legacy systems that don't support any modern identity security. I think that until we get to all these blind spots and really solve identity security everywhere, it's never going to be effective, because It's like locking the door but leaving the window open, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you secured your VPN with MFA, but I can still log in another way. Or maybe you protect remote desktop, but I can still use a command line tool to log into the same resource.
Yeah.
Or grab a
or
service
still an
account.
OAuth key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's just so many ways. Until we holistically take care of identity security, attackers get to choose how to log into our systems. And as long as there's one way they can do it without being seen, they will, and they are today.
Yeah.
So we are seeing this all over. We are really trying, not just us, many vendors I think these days are trying to solve this problem of identity security. I think enterprises are becoming more aware, at least that's what we are seeing. I think we've been around for 8 years now. In the beginning, people barely understood why they should even invest in this. Now I think awareness is much higher. Generally, CISOs understand they need to take care of identity security. They also understand it's not just the infrastructure team's problem, but they understand it is part of security. So I think we are on the right way, I hope, to solve it. But it's a difficult challenge, I think. And attackers know it. That's why they target identities.
I think most people are familiar with the saying, why would I develop an exploit when I can log in?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's very true. I think attackers know that it's just the easiest way to get in.
So you're talking about covering a lot of ground. Is that something Silverfort is doing? Are you looking to acquire to do that, to cover? Because there's a lot of space to cover.
For sure.
You're talking about machine identities, like that's very different technology than MFA and things that are employee facing, human facing. What's your plan for creating this kind of unified identity security layer?
So we are growing a lot, and it is a very ambitious goal, right, to solve identity security overall. But we have been building this for 8 years now. We have raised more than $220 million, right? A lot of it recently in a Series D round that we did beginning of this year, $116 million.
Yeah.
And yes, part of it will be used for potentially acquiring other companies. I think there are a lot of startups doing interesting things in identity security today. Most of it is point solutions. It's solving one specific problem, but to me that's interesting because if I can add that to our platform, that's exactly what I want to do. And we are growing very fast in terms of just the business, right? We're growing more than 100% year over year. We're adding more than 100 customers every quarter now. Some of them are the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah.
So I think we're getting to a point which I think is really a sweet spot where we are still a startup, right? So we still innovate, we still build a lot of new stuff, but we are big enough to have the resources in order to truly build a platform and not just one point solution. Potentially acquire, take bigger moves, which I think are required to tackle this huge problem. So I do believe and hope that we will become, the leading platform of identity security overall, not just MFA or ITDR or non-human identities, but just identity security in general. And I think there's a need for that. Somebody needs to solve identity security holistically.
Yeah. And I understand you have a research report you do. Is this an annual report that you do, or is this the first year?
We started to do it, yes. We intend to now do it every year. We call it the Identity Underground report because a lot of the goal is to uncover a lot of these hidden blind spots that we talked about, right? A lot of companies, like you said, they think they have MFA, they have PAM, they feel like maybe they're kind of covered. They don't understand that so many of their users are still, not using these tools, or maybe they're using them but are not effectively secured because of all kind of hidden permissions or legacy protocols they're still using, like NTLM that a third of admins are still using for some reason, or because they're syncing their on-prem passwords to the cloud. So if they have some vulnerabilities on-prem, the attacker can breach there and then use that to access the cloud as well. All these blind spots people don't think about. The goal of this report is to uncover. So we released the first one a couple of months ago. We got great feedback, and we're going to continue to do more and more of these. And not just the report, we're thinking about doing more and more things for the identity security community, which I think for many years have been kind of neglected because people viewed identity as an IT or infrastructure. They didn't really think about identity security as a standalone category. And I think now that people are starting to, we definitely want to help the industry get there and get that knowledge that it takes.
Well, and I imagine if you're going to build this holistic platform, even though this is a public report, this research, this data is useful for product strategy,
Exactly.
for understanding where those gaps are that you need to fill to be holistic.
Exactly. So the report actually is based on data that we got from hundreds of enterprises that agreed to share data with us for research purposes.
Right.
And we're just using part of that data to also, give back and share more insights with the industry. But a lot of this data and much more is used to improve our product. Today, I think, especially in the AI era, there's a lot you can do if you have enough data, right? If you really have visibility into every identity, every authentication everywhere, right? On-prem, cloud, humans, machines, everything in between, you can actually get a huge advantage in just the insight you can get out of identities. I think that for so long, identity infrastructure has been fragmented, but it doesn't mean that identity security has to be. I think that identity security can become something that is much more unified, and I think visibility is just the first step. We need to understand what's out there and where are the blind spots.
So before we wrap up here today, what are some of the most interesting insights that came out of this report, this being the first one that you've done?
So some insights have to do with the way people are using identities across hybrid environments, right? Because I think a lot of people understand some of the issues with on-prem Active Directory. They understand some issues in the cloud-native identity provider. They don't fully understand the synergy between them that actually allows attackers to start from one of them and spread to the other, like we've seen in attacks by Scattered Spider and even in the SolarWinds attack. In a lot of different data breaches, people take advantage of on-prem vulnerabilities and then just go from there to the cloud identity. So part of the insight is around that, how many people are syncing different passwords, configurations between those environments, and how does that expose you to attacks. Some of it has to do with the use of legacy protocols or all kinds of configurations that expose you to your password being stolen or to lateral movement potential, right? So a lot of things around the use of protocols that our customers, a lot of them think that they got rid of, right? They got rid of NTLM v1, they got rid of clear text LDAP, but it's still there. It's so much of it is still there and they don't even know. And a lot has to do with privileged users, how privileged users are secured, the fact that some people still have so many shadow admins, admins that you don't really know about, but maybe you gave your help desk the ability to reset the admin's password, so effectively they can become admins as well if somebody steals their credentials. These are the kind of things that we talked about in that first report, because a lot of the goal was to just kind of set the ground for what is the state today, so that in the next reports we can start building in terms of trends and where things are going, where attackers are focusing. I do believe, again, that with the use of AI, attackers are going to start using identities in a way that is much more dangerous, because stealing identities becomes easy with AI-driven social engineering, right? You can trick people much easier to give it to you. But then also attacks in your network will become much more automated and faster. So I think that prevention is going to play a bigger and bigger role, because detection might become too slow. If I tell you that there's a stolen identity in your network and a few hours later you respond to that might not be fast enough in this era. So I think a lot of these insights, we are using them now in order to power more proactive or real-time response to prevent these attacks, and not just to send you more alerts. I don't think the industry in general needs just more alerts, data. I think that it's much more about how do we take that data in real time and we use it to prevent threats, and that's where we focus.
That makes sense. Well, Hed, thank you so much for joining us today on Security Weekly. And to find out more about Silverfort, visit securityweekly.com/Silverfort RSAC. And for more RSA content, you can go to securityweekly.com/RSAC. Stick around. We'll be back with another interview shortly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.